Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Authorities in the Italian capital of Rome say that a man freed from a harrowing tunnel collapse will have to dig himself out of a whole other heap of trouble this week, as he is now suspected of being a bank robber. According to reports, the situation began sometime on August 11th when police were alerted that a section of road had been seriously damaged, just a short distance southwest of the Vatican. They arrived to find that the situation had actually been caused by the collapse of a tunnel, which was being secretly dug by 4 men below the busy street. 3 of the men had apparently escaped, though 1 was stuck inside. In order to save the trapped man, rescue workers had to dig down 6 meters, or nearly 20 feet, creating a parallel tunnel to get to the man to avoid further collapse. The man was given liquid food and an oxygen cylinder to keep him alive while the team carried out the rescue. Finally, after 8 hours, the man was freed from the collapsed tunnel. He was taken to the hospital in critical condition, but alive. Authorities now say that they believe that the man and his 3 alleged accomplices were actually bank robbers who were planning to tunnel into the vault of a local bank in the next couple of days. According to reports, the tunnel originated in a closed-down shop that had recently been rented by the men, one that is close to at least 2 local banks. Investigators theorize that the suspects planned to actually carry out the heist on August 15th, a nationally celebrated holiday in Italy when the bank would have been closed and the city would have been relatively quiet. While all 4 men have now been arrested, they are not currently facing charges in connection with their alleged bank robbery scheme. Instead, 2 of the men, including the one who was trapped in the tunnel, were arrested for damage to public property, while the other 2 were arrested for resisting a public official. This reportedly happened because they tried to flee the scene of the crime after alerting the police to the tunnel collapse. The 2 men claim that they were merely in the area by chance and were trying to help out. However, other reports we came across mention that all 4 of the suspects have previous convictions for robbery. At the time of this recording, the situation is still developing. Authorities in the Peruvian capital of Lima say that the incredibly reckless and petty actions of a single man put many people's lives in danger this week after he tried to flee the scene of a traffic stop while carrying a busload of people to avoid a fine. According to reports, the incident took place sometime on August 11th when police were carrying out a joint operation with the city's urban transport authorities. The goal of the operation was to crack down on the city's illegal transportation system, an informal network of unauthorized vans and buses that are used by countless people each day. The situation began when one such vehicle, a type of small bus known locally as a cooster, was stopped by police on Cantacallao Avenue. The vehicle seats about 20 to 30 people, and officers had witnessed it picking up passengers from an illegal bus stop. When police approached the driver, an unidentified man, they asked him to pull over so that they could see some official documentation. Instead, he accelerated, driving right towards a group of several officers who were trying to surround the bus. The driver reportedly continued on for a short distance, zigzagging back and forth over curbs, erratically switching lanes, and making illegal turns, all while trying to maneuver around traffic and avoid police. Keep in mind, the guy had a full busload of people on board throughout this entire time. Eventually, police managed to immobilize the vehicle and get everyone off, after which a tow truck was called and the bus was hitched up. Amazingly, there were no injuries. According to reports, up until this point, the illegal bus driver's attempt to flee had ostensibly been about avoiding a fine. It was reckless, but supposing he had actually managed to escape, his motive would have at least made sense. What doesn't make a whole lot of sense, though, was what came next. As authorities were preparing to tow the bus away, the driver set his own vehicle on fire. The bus apparently caught fire so quickly, and the situation became so dangerous, that the police were apparently forced to unhitch the vehicle from the tow truck and more or less just watch the thing go up in flames on the side of the road. Though reports we came across failed to mention the name of the driver or what happened next, it's safe to say that he was likely taken into custody. As for the broader goal of cracking down on informal transportation in Lima, apparently this is something that the government has been trying to do for a while now. While many people reportedly still rely on these kinds of buses each day, based on the information we were able to find, the desire to standardize transportation has come at least in part from dangerous incidents that have happened as a result of this chaotic system. In 2019, one such incident claimed the lives of at least 20 people when a double-decker bus that was reportedly both carrying passengers and transporting a large amount of fuel caught fire. Authorities in the Australian state of Queensland say that a 38-year-old man has been arrested this week after being wanted for questioning in connection with the death of a 44-year-old woman. According to reports, the case began on the afternoon of August 13th, after the 44-year-old woman's body was found by some teenagers who were riding ATVs on a dirt trail in the seaside suburb of BLUEWATER. The area in question is close to a popular fishing spot, which is about 30 kilometers northwest of the city of Townsville. The 44-year-old woman has not been identified by name, though is said to be the mother of 4 children who were between the ages of 14 and 24. Authorities have so far declined to release details about her death, though say that a weapon was involved. After an initial investigation, police began to search for the woman's 38-year-old partner, who was wanted for questioning in connection with the incident. Bizarrely, he would be found the next day roughly 300 kilometers away, following an unconnected violent road rage incident. According to reports, while traveling on the Bruce Highway near the town of Yalbaroo, the 38-year-old fired a single gunshot at another driver. The driver was thankfully uninjured, but reported the incident to police, allowing them to track the 38-year-old suspect to Proserpine, where he was arrested at a gas station at about 8:30 p.m. At the time of this recording, authorities say that they are still investigating the case and are trying to figure out what happened to the 44-year-old woman. Reports state that there were no previous domestic and family violence orders between the couple, and so far, the 38-year-old has not been charged. However, the situation is still developing. People across the United Kingdom are saddened and outraged this week after a beloved 87-year-old man known for playing music and raising money for charity was viciously stabbed to death in broad daylight in West London. According to reports, 87-year-old Thomas O'Halloran was a well-known figure in the town of Greenford, where on most days he could be seen riding around on his mobility scooter and playing his accordion at his 2 favorite spots, either at Greenford railway station or outside the local Tesco supermarket. A retired engineer originally from the west of Ireland, Thomas was also a passionate musician, but used the money he raised from busking to give to charity. For the past few months, he had reportedly been raising money for victims of the war in Ukraine, and had decorated the box on the front of his mobility scooter to look like the Ukraine flag. Those that knew him say that he always brought an upbeat attitude wherever he went, and was constantly laughing and telling jokes. On the afternoon of August 16th, Thomas was reportedly doing a routine switch between his busking spots and was heading down busy Western Avenue towards Greenford Station. However, just after 4 p.m. that day, he was viciously attacked by a man armed with a knife in what is believed to have been a botched robbery attempt. Though Thomas managed to make it about 75 yards onto nearby Runnymede Gardens to call for help, sadly, he collapsed shortly after, and emergency responders were unable to save his life. The following day, representatives from London's Metropolitan Police released an image of the suspect in the case, taken from CCTV footage obtained in the area around the crime scene. It appeared to show a man fleeing the scene after the murder. Pleas were made to the public to help identify and find the unknown man. According to reports, at around 1:30 a.m. on August 18th, police showed up at a residence in Southall, just a couple of miles away from where the terrible crime took place. After what has been described as a tense 30-minute standoff, they were able to arrest a suspect, identified only as a 44-year-old man. Unfortunately, it appears that sources have not yet confirmed whether this is the same man who was pictured in the CCTV footage released the previous day. At the time of this recording, the crime is still under investigation, and more updates will likely be released in the following days. The situation is still developing. Authorities in Auckland, New Zealand say that an unlucky local family recently found themselves at the center of a chilling homicide investigation after they purchased an abandoned storage container and made a horrifying discovery inside. It all started on August 11th when the family purchased the goods inside the abandoned storage unit at an auction that was being held by a local storage company. This kind of thing will be familiar to anyone who has ever seen the reality television series Storage Wars or something similar. Basically, people bid on all of the items in a given unit, often after only getting a glimpse of what's inside, and after winning, hope that there's something of value in there that they can use or sell. In any case, after purchasing the unit, a trailer containing the items was delivered to the family's residence in the Auckland suburb of Clendon Park. They began unpacking the trailer and discovered a series of suitcases. Inside two of them were human remains. Things only got more distressing when police arrived at the scene and analysis revealed that the remains belonged to two children. They were able to determine that the children were between 5 and 10 years of age. While authorities have currently released very little additional information about the case, they say they are now in the process of trying to determine the identities of the two young victims. They are hoping that some of the other items in the storage unit will offer clues, but are also using DNA evidence to track down possible surviving family members. It's not clear how far they've gotten with this, though in some reports we came across, police did mention that the victims' relatives are thought to still be in the country. This would seem to suggest that they have at least some idea who they are looking for. At the same time, however, investigators also mentioned that the task of tracking down additional evidence related to the storage unit would be difficult, since it had been abandoned for several years and most relevant CCTV footage taken by the storage company had since been erased. Police have also mentioned that they do not suspect the family who discovered the remains of having any involvement in the case. At the time of this recording, the situation is still developing. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week International series, then you might remember that last week we brought you the story of an intoxicated Japanese police officer from Osaka who was arrested after allegedly trespassing on the grounds of a distribution center and claiming that he thought he was in his own home. Well, it seems that the string of bad luck for police and alcohol continues this week, this time with a hapless 49-year-old police detective. According to authorities in Hyogo Prefecture, the 49-year-old investigator created quite the embarrassing situation for them this week after he had a little too much fun with some subordinates at a local izakaya. The situation began at around 8:30 p.m. on August 12th in the city of Nishinomiya, with the men apparently going hard at their drinking session until about 11 p.m. Everything was fine until the 49-year-old saw his colleagues off at the train station, at which point he started to walk home on foot. Unfortunately, he didn't make it very far though, before falling asleep on the street. When the detective woke up at around 5 a.m., he apparently realized that he had bigger problems than not making it home the previous night. A bag containing documents from a case he was working on was nowhere to be found. Not only did the documents contain the name and many personal details of the suspect of the case he was working on, it also contained the names of about 400 other people who were related to the investigation. Making matters even worse, the detective wasn't supposed to have the documents in the first place. Police are generally prohibited from taking these kinds of materials out of the workplace unless they have express permission from superiors. Apparently, the 49-year-old went to the izakaya instead of returning the documents. While police say that so far the documents have not been misused following their disappearance, it's not really clear how they would know that. At the current time, it seems that they have not been recovered. As for what will happen next, reports do not say, though we can't imagine that the 49-year-old detective is going to be too popular at work for the next little while. Authorities in the Ecuadorian city of Guayaquil say that 5 people are dead this week and more than 24 are injured after a brazen early morning bombing of a local restaurant. According to reports, the incident took place on August 14th, when 2 people drove up to a restaurant on a motorcycle in the city's Cristo del Consuelo neighborhood and threw a sack full of explosives inside. They fled the scene just before the explosives detonated, killing 5 people and wounding at least 26 others. The blast also destroyed several vehicles in the area and damaged nearby houses, some of which had the fronts almost completely ripped off. While no group has officially taken credit for the bombing, authorities have blamed the deadly attack on organized crime, with the country's interior minister calling it a, quote, declaration of war by criminal gangs against the government. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week International series, then you might recall that violence has been steadily growing worse in Ecuador for some time now, as the country is increasingly being used as a smuggling route for drugs by neighboring countries such as Colombia and Peru. This is manifested in a sharp increase in murders, especially in cities like Guayaquil, which is a vital port city. This week's attack triggered a declaration of emergency in the city, the 4th such declaration to be made in Ecuador since October of last year because of gang violence. While one of the suspects allegedly involved in the attack has reportedly been arrested, it appears that his name has not been released at this time. The situation is still developing. Authorities in the small Balkan nation of Montenegro say that 11 people are dead, including the suspect this week, after a 34-year-old man went on a terrifying shooting rampage. According to reports, the incident took place in CETINJE, a town located in the southwest of the country, which also served as the nation's former royal capital. It began at around 3:30 p.m. on August 12th, when a 34-year-old man, identified only by the initials VB, started shooting people with a hunting rifle in the town's Medavina neighborhood. The first victims were said to be 2 children, ages 8 and 11 years old, followed by their mother. The 3 were reportedly tenants in the suspect's home. After shooting the first 3 victims, VB allegedly proceeded to walk out into the street, firing at random passers-by. 13 more people were shot before police arrived on the scene. While reports state that police engaged the suspect in a shootout, it's unclear if they were actually the ones to strike the fatal blow. Many sources allege that it was actually a civilian who managed to finally hit VB, who later died of his injuries. Of the 16 total reported victims, sadly, 10 would die, including the 2 children and the mother who lived in VB's house. While no motive behind the horrifying attack has been confirmed, several sources we came across stated that it began with a family dispute. Those that knew VB say that he was a father of 4 children and was normally a peaceful family man. However, many said that he had recently exhibited a, quote, change in behavior. He apparently had an appointment to see a mental health care specialist, but the rampage happened prior to this appointment. Following the tragic events, the country declared 3 days of national mourning. Many say that they are still in disbelief, wondering how something like this could happen. At the time of this recording, several of the victims are still recovering in hospitals. The situation is still developing. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a minute to thank our amazing supporters over on Patreon. As many of you are aware, our situation on YouTube always seems to be a bit uncertain, but our patrons help to ensure that we can continue to make content like this long-term without having to worry as much about what surprises might be thrown our way. Plus, patrons also get access to 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. If you'd like to help support the channel directly, head over to patreon.com/crimezone to join. You can also find that link in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and take care.